goes. So yeah, we are looking at training on Wednesday nights at Thebby Oval. Obviously, at the moment, it's up to you guys to do your own trainings. And yeah, you'll, I guess, be found out if you're not when it comes around to games. So I encourage you to get out there and keep your fitness up. But yeah, we'll let you know about the training sessions on Wednesday nights in due course. Just want to touch on the fact that we're not having coaches this year, or we've got a very small amount that have kept on the staff. They're the ones that are going to be working with the first years. But the majority of the coaches, just for this year, we haven't engaged, and most of them are running umpires, so they'll still be running. But they just need to, we just need to help the league out with the current financial situation to save some money this year. So I guess while there'll be no official coaching feedback, we will be relying on the experienced umpires to help, in particular the new umpires. So yeah, there will be that unofficial feedback available. I'll do what I can to have a look at Div 1 games, especially on video, but that's about it as far as official feedback goes. I'll do what I can to look at the Div 1 games so we can try and separate guys for grand finals into the year. But yeah, everything that happens this year is going to be a little bit different to usual. A note about bank account details. Just make sure your current bank account detail is in scheduler, because your payments are going to be going in there, including the trial game payments. We've just added the rule book. Sam, you'll be happy about that. Rule book to the umpiring page of the website. So if you want to have a look at that, go for it. And yeah, we've only just got that from the AdFL today. Now, Paul Smith, you want to unmute yourself, mate? Just sent me a message today, and there are probably a few of you in this boat. Because of COVID this year, we've had quite a few lose their jobs through different circumstances, and Paul's looking for some full-time, part-time or temporary work, including bookkeeping. But Paul, if you want to unmute yourself, just give yourself a little bit of rundown of what you do.
Yeah, so I work as an accountant, primarily within small, medium business, just doing month-end reports and everyday accounts. So if anyone knows of anyone that needs someone, as Colin said, part-time, full-time, temp, just for a few weeks, happy to take anything.
Yeah, good on you, mate. And yeah, if anyone wants to contact Paul directly or contact through me, if they know of anything, any options, I know there's a few others in the group that are in a similar boat. So if you want to send me a message during the week, if you're in that situation, give us a little bit of a rundown of your qualifications. We'll just put it out there, and someone might be able to help. So you never know. All right. What we're going to try and do now is I'm going to see if I can get the interpretations video up. I did this with the first year guys. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see that video. Is that? Yep, beauty. So we're going to, I'll play this and just stop it every now and again. I did this with the first years recently. We're halfway through it, but I thought it'd be a good chance for us just to remind ourselves what we're trying to do this year. There's not too many changes from last year, but we had a hell of a lot of changes last year, and we need to kind of improve in a couple of areas, especially the holding the ball. So we'll get this underway, and yeah, if you want to go back and have a look at your own time, it'd be a good thing to do. But we'll start it, and then we'll just stop it every now and again. All right, simple one. Third man up is allowed. We don't have to worry about ruck nominations. Keep it simple. You do have to be aware about players blocking around the ruck, but yeah, we don't want to get too worried about what happens at AFL level in that regard, because we don't have the ruck nomination rule. So 25-metre penalties instead of 50. That's for everything, including player counts. It's all standardised now that everything is 25. And probably the other difference when you're paying a 25 as opposed to what you see with the AFL is instead of turning your back on the players, I prefer you to run backwards, keeping your eye on the players the whole time. Of course, they can play on and they can run forward. And so if they run past you, you've got to turn around and start running forward. But yeah, just keep an eye on the players the whole time because that's where you can get niggle. So yeah, no deliberate rush. So it's a bit confusing at AFL level when they do and they don't. We just don't pay it at all, including when there's just saw the last example when there's a ruck contest. If it's hit through on the full, it's still all clear for a behind. Yeah, basically just don't pay free kicks in those scenarios. Let the all clear stand. So, yeah, with the deliberate out of bounds, it needs to be really obvious. So straight at the line, handball or kick. This is for men's footy. The women's footy have last possession, which we might talk about next week. But yeah, if in any doubt, we don't pay it. It has to be really obvious, and you rarely pay it. But you can pay it. In that scenario where there's a ruck contest and it's hit on the full over the line, that is an automatic free kick for around the grounds. But yeah, we don't want to see deliberates paid in these examples coming up where you would see it at AFL. So no starting positions. It's just when you're throwing the ball up in the middle of the ground at the start of the game or after a goal, you just got to count the 4 in the square. No restrictions on runners and water carriers. We'd be really lenient with them. Just make sure they get off the ground if they're hanging around. But yeah, you need to use your communication. Don't need to pay for kicks. The prohibited zones behind umpires was brought in at AFL level last year, but I've never seen them actually pay a free kick for it. We have to be aware where the players are. So when you're throwing the ball up, clear a path. And if there was obvious contact where they were really reckless in running through, you can pay a free kick. But it's really up to the umpire to clear the path, and you shouldn't have those issues. We'll get to those ones later. Okay, so the changes from last year. First one, we did bring in the rule last year where you could just run out of the square for a kick in after a point, but it was left that the player on the mark only had to come back 5 metres. We've made it 10 metres this year just to bring it in line with AFL. Don't get too technical about it, but we are asking for the player to come back that little bit more. If they're making the effort and they're coming back and then the player goes out of the square and you call play on, then the player doesn't have to come back to the 10-metre mark. The moment the player crosses the line, that's cancelled, just like around the ground with a set kick. And so then they can run forward and try and smother. But yeah, we just want a little bit more space between the kick-off line and the player on the mark. And the other one we're going to see some examples of here. We've been a little bit lenient at our level in recent years for the ruckman that crosses the line. When I say crosses the line, that's the line of where the ball is when it leaves your hand and goes up. It's not the line in the middle. I didn't really make it that clear on this video, but it can be around the ground as well. It's not just in the middle. But the examples here are the ones in the middle. You can really see that the Old Nations player who doesn't jump crosses the line. If we pay a few of these free kicks, the non-jumping ruckman that does this will stop doing it. So the key there is that the ruckman crosses the line when the umpire lets go of the ball, and the other ruckman can't touch the ball. So automatic free kick. We've let them get away with that for too long, and it's caused problems. But we don't pay free kicks if they cross the line and then the other ruckman does touch the ball. So this example we just play on as we did last year. When the ruckman punches it clear. Let's hold it. So everything we've done so far is pretty basic. Is there, anyone want to unmute themselves to ask any questions so far? Having a good chat there, Balsy, I can see. Nothing you wanted to add? All right. Geez, if only I could have muted you in the actual live coaching sessions we had. It would have been good. All right, so this is what I really want to clean up this year, and it's A, B, C grade, women's footy, under 18. We need to be consistent right across. So for those that are fairly new to the panel, we used to be very lenient on the ball player. Last year we tightened it up to sort of bring it into line to AFL and SANFL because that's kind of what's expected. So this year we just want to try to get a bit more consistency. It was easy to be consistent when we weren't paying holding the ball, but now we are paying a lot more. We're being less consistent, but it's better for the game because the players aren't holding the ball in and we're getting less stoppages. So what we want to do with this interpretation is we want the players to change their behaviour. So we don't want them taking possession on the ground and causing a stoppage. We want them to keep their feet if possible. And when they're tackled, we want them to make a genuine attempt to get rid of it. It's a really complicated rule and everything happens so quickly. But we did a great job last year in making the change we did. Just think we can we'll go that next step this year and be a little bit more consistent with it. We particularly weren't tough enough on the player who was on the ground and choose to take possession of the ball. So let's have a look at some examples. Hey Rob, I've just noticed you have unmuted yourself. Is there something you wanted to say?
I know. I was going to say something, Cole. I think that rule worked pretty well last year. The clubs liked it.
The holding the ball?
Yeah.
Yeah. I certainly, it was better than the year before that when we weren't paying them. Yeah, everyone got used to it pretty quickly. We did have some complaints, but yeah, you're never going to get everyone happy with this rule. Yeah. No. So yeah, as I said before, we want the players to keep their feet and attempt to kick or handball when tackled. And yeah, the player that goes to ground, they want to knock it clear rather than take possession. All right. This one here, there's no prior opportunity and he basically drops the ball. What you're looking for here is for him to swing his leg and actually try and kick it. But you'll see that he basically drops it without trying to handball or kick. All right, so this one caused a bit of discussion when we showed it at the start of the year. And if you still disagree with it, or you go back and have a look at it a couple of times to see what we're trying to get happen. The player takes possession of the ball, could try and get a handball out, but then he sees the player coming to tackle him and he chooses to hold on to it and just waits for the ball up. What we want to see is that attempt to try and handball it. All right, so there'll be a few of you that will still think that's too hot, but again, it's what we're coming back to, that when they're tackled, we want to see them make a genuine attempt to handball or kick. And where we used to be for the 50-50 calls, err on the side of the ball player and not pay a free kick, we're now, for those 50-50 calls, erring on the side of paying, holding the ball and not having a stoppage.
Is that the same as trying to ride the bump column? Like
Ride
the
the
player
bump.
sees the player coming and then sort of just braces himself for the tackle. You can probably.
It comes back to, do they try and, so there was a really good one paid the other night in the AFL game, Geelong. It went to Dangerfield. I think it was Smith had the ball, and there wasn't a deal of time for him to actually handball or kick, but he chose to keep running and try and take him on, I guess, and didn't make an attempt to dispose of the ball. Dangerfield laid a good tackle and it was a good hold. Brett Roseberry paid it. So, yeah, I guess it is about whether they're trying to dispose of the ball when they're tackled. And if they're just happy to wait for the ball up, then that's where we can penalise them. You still delay the whistle to see if the ball comes out. That delay of the whistle is what the really good umpires do. But yeah, this is a tough rule. But if we consistently on the same page as trying to get the players to do the right thing, then we'll be more consistent with what we're doing out there. Okay, so diving on the ball is considered as a prior opportunity. That was pretty obvious, I would have thought. So with these ones, we used to be really generous and say, 1 or 2 steps wasn't a prior opportunity. Now that's not the case at all. Is, in your opinion, have they had a chance to handball or kick? And so you'll see these next couple of ones, there is a chance for them to handball or kick before they're tackled, and that's their prior opportunity because they don't then kick or handball, it's on the ball. All right, so the fend off, that's a sign that they're choosing to try and fend off instead of handball or kick, and that should be penalised. And this is the area that we need to be a bit tougher on. So if there's a player on the ground already, they need to be knocking the ball clear. But if they choose to take possession, that's where they're likely to cause a stoppage, and that's where, if the ball doesn't come out, then we have the courage to pay the free kick. So those last couple of ones are really the drag in that you've seen at AFL level. But the next one is a good example of the one I'm talking about, where it doesn't necessarily drag it in, but just because he's on the ground, he chooses to take possession. that's where we consider a proper opportunity. So there'll be plenty there that I would have thought would have just balled that one up, but Dennis had the courage to pay that one because, again, the player on the ground choose to take possession instead of hitting it clear, and he was the one that caused the stoppage. Does anyone want to make a comment about any of those?
Colin?
Yeah, mate.
The player that's on the ground but's holding the position like a full arm's length away from his body, is that in possession or is that just guarding the ball?
If he puts his hands on the ball.
Yep. A good
then,
arm's length, so he's got it away from his ball, he hasn't dragged it, he's got it away, is that possession?
Yep, and then the pack develops because he's chosen to take possession, then yes, we penalise that.
Okay, thank you.
But again, you can delay the whistle to give him a chance to get it out. So it is actually possibly a bit tougher than what even you see at AFL level these days. But if we're trying to be consistent and we're trying to get players to change what they're doing, then I think this is a fairly simple instruction to have in your mind when you go out there. And they'll soon get the message. If you pay something early on, you'll see the rest of the game will open up.
Hey, Colin, just on that, have you had any discussion with the people at SANFL, AFL, with regard to the way that they've relaxed the holding the ball decision? No, because I'm being serious, because they were very tight and then we adjusted and now they've loosened right off.
Yeah, no, they loosened after we tightened.
Yeah.
No, I haven't had discussion there, and I don't know exactly what they're told. But you've got to remember that AFL, they're dealing with players that know exactly what they're doing at times, and they can generally get the ball out. So they tend to give them a long time to try and get the ball out, and it often does spill out. I mean, I'm not going to chop and change what they're doing at higher level. I guess I've settled on these interpretations.
Yeah.
I've taken it through the league office here, and they were happy with these interpretations. So let's just be consistent and stick to what we're doing. If you see something,
I'm happy with the interpretation. I like it. It just worries me that people watching Friday night the AFL and then they come out on Saturday and
I know. But then if you compare to what it was before when we hardly ever paid it, we had the opposite problem, didn't we? But I guess you just keep reinforcing to the players who might be upset with you paying it that if you're taking possession, don't do it when you're on the ground. Yeah. And if you do, knock it clear as quickly as you can. And if you're tackled, try and get rid of it. Just keep repeating those things over and over, and then tell them to watch the video, which most of them haven't. But I do
tell them to get to their feet as well.
Sorry, Frank.
And tell them to get to their feet if they want to take possession on the ground.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to get to one of those examples here. So,
Colin, we follow.
The point being isn't we're not paying holding the ball every single time. There will be examples coming up. So we'll just have a look at some of those. But yeah, exactly right, Frank. If you're on the ground, you take possession, get to your feet, and then we won't consider it for opportunity. So here's some examples where we don't pay holding the ball. So Frank, give us your opinion on that one. Tell us how come we decided that wasn't holding the ball?
Takes possession of the ball, is legally tackled without a prior opportunity. Good delay of the whistle. Player makes a genuine attempt to kick the ball. Play on.
Oh, mate, there's a good reason why I asked you to do that. But you nailed it. That was good. All right, let's go to the next one. So that one's just a clear ball up. We don't need to read anything too much into that. No prior opportunity. He was on his feet when he took possession. That's just a clear ball up. And good positioning from Merrick. Yeah, so there's going to be times where both players and both sides have their hands on the ball. If you penalise anyone in there, it'd be way too tough. And similarly here, there's too many hands on that to penalise anyone.
You can always use your voice, Colin. Just tell them you both got it.
And when the tackler pulls the ball into the other player, this one's a bit hard to see. You have to kind of look at this really closely. But the player on top actually drags that ball back underneath the player. So if you see that that's what's happened, then you don't penalise the player underneath. And this is the one we're talking about. So you'll see the player take possession on the ground and then gets to their feet immediately. And if he didn't get to his feet, then we'd be thinking about paying it. All right. I'm going to keep these meetings to 30 minutes so they don't drag on. And I know you've all got other things to do. So that'll do for today. Does anyone want to ask any questions or make any comments before we wind up?
Yeah, Colin, it's David, mate. Can you hear me, buddy?
I can, yep.
Yeah, just got one question, a couple of questions. The length of quarters this year, are they going to change from 20 to 16 minutes as exactly the same as the AFL, or are we going to...
No. John Kennedy told me that the B grade is going to go for a little bit longer. I think it's 25 straight minutes because they've got extras on interchange. Okay. A grade will be the same and C grade will be the same.
Okay, no dramas. I just thought to ask that's all because I did see it 2:30 start, and is that the officials' time they're starting, or is it 2:15? Because it's on the programming. I did see it at 2:30 starting for A grade.
There's a couple of changes for the trial game weekend, but when we get the week after, it'll be the standard 10:15, 12:15, 2:15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all good. Thanks for that.
Cheers, mate.
Tap.
So I'll go through all a bit more of those specifics next week in the lead up to the first round or the trial game weekend. But yeah, there's not going to be any changes from what we set out at the start of the year with the rules and interpretations, where the last possession will only be for the women's. The men's, including the trial game weekend, will do the what we did last year, not with the last possession. All right. Payne, you want to just unmute yourself, mate?
Yep.
Just give you one last chance to gloat before we go.
I'm not going to gloat. So the Crows can fix your culture problem, boys.
Hey,
I was talking about gloating, not having a go at the Crows, but anyway, enjoy it. All right, guys. We'll see you next Monday, and not long to go now. We're less than 2 weeks.
Hey, Cole, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Just with rocking up to the games in gear, are you? If we're comfortable using the change rooms, are you happy with us to still use them, or would you prefer us to stay out?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, now we'll go through a bit of all that stuff next week. Just it'll be less strict this year as far as the pre-game routine. Still what you're seeing the coaches, that doesn't change, but yeah, you're able to rock up in your gear and you don't have to go in the change room, but if you want to use the change room, feel free to. All right, guys. Our first Zoom meeting went pretty well, I thought. Good to see you all, and we'll catch you next Monday.
Thanks, Cole.
Thanks, Cole.
Thanks, Cole. Good on you, mate.
Thanks, Cole. Got the power.
See you, Cole.
Yeah.
See you, Cole.
Thanks, Cole.
See you, Cole.
That's it.